Perfect. This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us today on WZRD a very, very special guest. She is Beverly Miles. She ran for governor for the state of Illinois in the last election in November 2022. And now she is running for alderperson of the 28th Ward. Good morning, Beverly. How are you today?
Good morning. I am super fantastic. How are you?
Very, very well. We are so glad to have you here today. First of all, Beverly, tell us what inspired, what did you see that you needed to do? And give us a little background first about you, and then what from your background caused you to decide to run for governor?
Well, I am a lifelong resident from the west side of Chicago.
Mhm.
I am a registered nurse of close to 30 years. I am double master's prepared. I am an Army retired major. I retired in 2014 and I moved back to Chicago, and I just saw a lot of injustices in the community that raised me.
Mhm.
And being a nurse, being a veteran, being a soldier, you know, we always advocate for worldly and social injustices. So I just saw a lot of the crime in my community, a lot of mental health in my community, a lot of food deprivations in my community. So I just decided that running for office would best suit me because I wanted to be a part of the change that I wanted to see in my community.
Mhm. Well, so how you did receive 8%, and you didn't have a budget. You had to spend your own money, right, for the
I
governor.
did.
This is just a lead up for your current one. So we hope that you don't mind telling us a little bit, about your run for governor. You had to spend your own money, but you got 8%. And if you want, you could tell us a little bit about how you got that 8%, how the challenges that you had to overcome.
You cut off. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. When you submitted your petition signatures, did you how many signatures do you still remember? Did you submit for governor?
Yeah. I think the signature requirement to run for governor was a minimal of 3,200, max of 6,500. I
Mhm.
turned in 6,400.
Mhm. Okay, and then you faced some challenges to your petition signatures too, and you had to spend money on to fight those challenges. What happened there?
I did. I was challenged 5 separate times. To include, I was taken to the appellate court. My D2s was also challenged. And I end up, with some fines because again, I didn't know what I was doing. My campaign was completely funded out of my own personal money. So, and I didn't have a campaign team. It was just myself. And I may have had a few volunteers here and there, but everything came completely out of my personal monies.
But you did do very well to get 8%. So how many
I did.
voters? How many voters are there for 8% that voted for you, approximately?
Um, if you look at different sites, they give different numbers,
Mhm.
but I was told towards after the election that I got it 10%. So I would
10%.
say 10% would probably be 100,000 votes statewide.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
So I don't know the actual number, but it's around 8 to 10%.
mhm. How are you able to reach so many voters? Because you're statewide, and you have like a bare bones budget. How were you able to reach so many voters? And for most of the voters, did they come from around your neighborhood, like around the area where you live? Do you know?
In Cook County alone, I think I got 37,000 votes, but the rest of the votes came from other counties.
Mhm.
We have 102 counties here in the state of Illinois, and I think I got votes in every county. Some
Mhm.
counties may not have been as much, But I did on the weekends, I would travel to different counties and meet different people. And I just kept getting my message out, and people on social media were sharing my page and sharing my posts. So I think that got my message out even more.
Mhm. What was the hook? What did you see? And then how were you able to show people that you would handle things differently? Of course, your background. If once people know your background, then they see that you're a go-getter, you're a doer. But how were you able to show people that you were different from the others and that you could get things done?
Well, I mean, I'm different in terms of I'm not a millionaire or a billionaire,
Mhm.
and the state of Illinois comprises of 99% of the working class people. That's me, that's you, that's the young person working at McDonald's or
Mhm.
working in healthcare. So we're part of the working class, and my philosophy is I truly believe the working class people should be in political offices, not the billionaires or not the millionaires, because when it comes to making decisions in terms of policies and legislations and do we buy medication? Do we put food on the table? They don't have those struggles. So I still believe we should have the working class person in the governor's seat. And that made me different because I was a part of the working class, and I don't have access to resources and people. So I think the everyday person was able to relate to me.
Mhm. And then, of course, you saw that a series of governors, right? You lived in your neighborhood almost all your life, right? All your life, and then you saw that there wasn't any change. Did it get worse and worse in your neighborhood? With the crime and the food deserts and what was the injustices? Let's see, crime,
Nothing.
the mental health issues. Yes,
Yes.
nothing ever
Nothing.
improved.
Nothing has changed.
Mhm.
We're still dealing with the increased number of crimes. We're
Mhm.
still dealing with carjackings. We're still dealing with people being robbed. We're still dealing with people living with mental health. We're still dealing with food deprivation. I live in the 28th ward. We have one grocery store, and that grocery store is located on Pulaski and Congress. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that area. However, that grocery store has been known for being closed for an infestation of rats.
Mhm.
So I don't see nothing changing from the 2018 election up until now.
Mhm.
And that was another reason why I decided to get into the race because, during election season, everybody come around and they pander the voters and say, hey, I'm here to make things better. I support you and I love my community, but they get the votes. And then once voting season is over with, it's business as usual.
Mhm. So, in your ward, you've never, well, you know that nothing has ever changed. That's why you had to run as alderperson. The crime that you spoke about, the deteriorating mental health care and the food desert. Nothing has changed. But if you promise that you will do something different.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I grew up in this neighborhood. My family migrated from Clarksville, Mississippi in the 60s. And my mother purchased the property I now own in 1971. So I've been here all of my life.
Mhm.
I left for a little while. I was educated from the west side of Chicago. I joined the military. And once I finished my military tours, I moved back to the same community, the same property that my mother once owned. And I just started to get involved. And I think I will probably spend the rest of my life running because I just think that, I mean, in my ward alone, we've had two aldermen in 40 years. And
Mm.
in 40 years, nothing has changed. And the education is poor. The 28th ward have the highest number of violence in the city of Chicago. Again, we don't have deserts. I mean, we have food deserts in our community. And if I have to describe the community at night, my community, the 28th ward, reminds me of a war zone. And during the day, it reminds me of a psych facility with no walls. So I just don't understand how we keep electing the same elective officials, knowing that we're faced with this every single day and every single election cycle.
How long has the incumbent been in office?
The current incumbent, Jason Irvin, has been in office since November of 2011.
Mhm. And so just this is for fair access. If any of the candidates, other candidates for Alderperson of the 28th Ward also want to interview with us on WZRD, we are open to that as well. Returning to you, Beverly. Beverly Miles, candidate for Alderperson of 28th Ward. When you came back from the military, you described seeing your neighborhood through new eyes. What did you see?
I didn't recognize it. And I remember getting off the expressway with my U-Haul truck at 3 o'clock in the morning. I did not recognize the community I grew up in. If I was to describe it, it was in worse condition than it was when I left. And again, when I came back home, I was looking at it from a fresh set of lens. And the next day I began to do some research. I'm like, okay, well, who's the alderman? I didn't know Jason was still the alderman. Who's our congressperson? I realized it was still Danny Davis. And then I just began to knock on doors, began to have conversation, because I wanted to know what was going on. Why is the community in worse condition, where you had open drug markets, up and down Madison Street? I was seeking answers, and the response that I get, it didn't make sense to me. I knew something was wrong. And the more I did research, I learned that there has been disinvestment in the west side of Chicago, particularly the 28th and the 24th Ward. And both of those wards is where you have your largest numbers of African-American people.
So in other words, you mean by disinvestment, the investors do not purchase, do not invest in such as banks. They don't lend money to business people, and developers don't try to develop so as to improve the neighborhood. That kind of investment. What kind of investment did you mean?
I investment in terms of education. A lot of people from the community that I come from, they're not college bound, and we have to understand that everybody are not college material, or families don't have the resources to send their children to college. I just think that if we had more like what do you call those programs? Where they could oh God, I forget what you call them, where they can like trade schools.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. If we have more trade schools where people can learn how to use their hands, if they can learn, they cook as a profession, do cosmetology, barbering. If they had more of those in the community, I believe that, especially in the high school, because once they graduate from high school, I think that they will be able to find a way to, if not create a job for themselves, or go work in a salon, or go work at an auto mechanic shop. So we don't have a lot of that in our communities. And then in terms of economic development, we really don't have a lot of development in the 28th Ward. And if we do have the development in the 28th Ward, a lot of poor people don't get the opportunity to access those developments, if that makes sense. So
you mean like the Black construction workers, construction firms, they don't have access to the contracts, and the employees that could be hired from the community, they don't have access to those jobs.
Correct. A lot of development that takes place in our community, they're either Caucasian males or Hispanic males. And a lot of those individuals do not come from our neighborhood, or they do not live in our neighborhood. So yes, I believe that if, I don't know who creates these contracts, I don't know how they bid on it and bid on them, and who who approves who gets the contract. I think in the big scheme of that, there should be a clause stating that they should hire qualified people from the community to be able to work those contracts and be able to sustain and maintain themselves.
What neighborhoods are within the 28th ward?
You have parts of East Garfield, West Garfield, and parts of Austin.
Parts of what?
You have all of West Garfield.
Yes.
You have East Garfield, and you have parts of Austin.
Austin. Okay. Yes. Thank you. So, in other words, a lot of people are talking about Englewood being, the very bad. But so you're saying that these three neighborhoods are in a even worse shape than Englewood? Is it that there's more disinvestment in the 28th ward than in Englewood?
I don't know about the disinvestments, but I do know about the crime. According to the Chicago Police Department statistics, the statistics shows that the 28th ward has the highest number of crimes, of violent crimes in the city of Chicago.
And when you came back, was there more blight? You said that everything looked different. Were you wiser and you saw what you didn't see before, or was there more blight?
I think there was more blight. It did. Being in politics or having the desires to be a politician was never on my radar. And I don't think I'm striving to be a politician, but I wanted to be a part of the change I want to see. You know, I own property here in the 28th ward. This is where I live. And I would like to be able to go and sit down outside and have a cup of coffee, but I can't do that. Because one, we don't have that in our community, and two, because of the violence. So it just kind of like changed the trajectory of my career in terms of I knew that I needed to get involved. And I ran for alderman in 2019, which I didn't win, but I did make the ballot. During that election, I got 800 votes, and I was proud of myself because, again, nobody really knew me. I had just came back home and I had just got involved. And when I decided to run for governor, I just prayed about it. And this is what the Spirit led on my heart. And, in the military, I was tracking to be a general. And I'm like, okay, why not? If I was tracking to be the general in the military, why can't I track to be the governor of the state of Illinois? So, and that's how all of this, evolved. And I'm just still advocating just for the basic needs of this community. And I think if we can start meeting the basic humanistic needs of people, I think we could begin to curb the violence.
When you have you done any research and seen any other persons other people that have were able to do better for the world, that were able to make change, that you could at least try to imitate, try to follow that model?
I think the 27th ward is definitely thriving. The 29th ward is thriving, and parts of the 37th ward is thriving as well. I would like to model what's going on in the 27th ward, because I mean it's a thriving community. And I just believe that, Black people or marginalized people in the 28th and the 24th ward, they want to thrive as well. So if I had to mimic another ward, I would like to mimic the 27th ward.
What do you have? What neighborhoods are in the 27th ward?
Fulton Market. Fulton Market is the only one I really know about. The Cabrini area.
Cabrini Green area too?
Yeah, they have a lot of economic development and opportunities. in that area. The West Loop is thriving. So yeah.
And you did you do any research about how those areas were before, and then versus what they are now? So that you see that it is possible to affect change.
I've not did any research, but I know it's possible because I do remember the 28th ward growing up. I do remember Cabrini Green a long time ago. So, and to see the development around Cabrini Green, definitely, I know it's doable.
Have you thought about how to promote development without also enabling gentrification?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Have you planned about how to address development while also not having gentrification, or how do you define gentrification?
I mean, gentrification is easy. I mean, it's pricing people in the community out. And I don't think that that's necessary. Again, my mother bought the property that I live in 1971, and on my block alone, most of the families have been here for over 50 plus years. Some people have lost their properties due to taxes. And again, I just think that there should be some special provisions for people who pay off their mortgage, but then they're in retirement status. I think we need to have some better provisions for those people. But if when I become the alderman, I would definitely, and I don't know how I would do it as of now, but definitely that would be the number one thing for me, that we not gentrify the people that's already here. I think we get. I think economic development and non-gentrification. I think it can go hand in hand, but we just got to bring everybody to the table.
So, in other words, a lot of your neighbors that they can't afford to pay their property taxes, and they lost their properties as a result of that.
A few, yes. Since I've been back, I can think of 3 off the top of my head, and I think one family I just talked to maybe about a month ago, and they're having some troubles with their property, and they're seniors now. So, but yeah, property taxes have been a big issue for a lot of people in our neighborhood.
Well, when you describe it as about 3 neighbors on your block, typical block, if they're like regular lots, it comprises about maybe 30 buildings or so on both sides of the street. So if 3 neighbors got issues with paying their property taxes, that's already 10% of the block. And
yeah,
that's a high number.
It's a very high number. But you know, I didn't know what they were experiencing until the sheriff came to put them out. And then when I found out, the grandchildren was like, hey, we couldn't pay the property taxes. My grandma died. The building is paid for, but we couldn't keep up the property taxes. And had they not been really prideful and had communicated what the struggles are, I truly believe people in the neighborhood would have, you know, collected money to help keep them in their homes.
So that will be another issue that you will address too as alderperson. How are you being challenged on your petitions again for alderperson?
Oh yeah. I was challenged. My record exam started last week Thursday, and we go back tomorrow to finish up. But yeah, I was challenged. The current incumbent alleging that I don't have enough signatures to get on the ballot.
And how many about how many signatures do you have that you believe are good signatures?
Well, I turned in 1,600, and I think 1,695. We only need 473. He challenged me all the way down to 281. So as of Thursday, I think we only, went through 20 sheets. And I was able, when we left the Board of Election on Friday, I had 315. So I believe I'm going to make my number.
Mhm.
I'm going to make my number, but this is just a part of the process to deter you or to make you spend money to keep you tied up so you can't campaign.
Mhm.
Is to cast doubt into voters' mind or potential people that's going to donate you money, is to cast doubt in donors' mind to keep you from raising money to get your message out.
And you also mentioned, so you mentioned that he took away about 200 signatures from you, but then you still have about 1,300, 1,400 that to go for the records exam, right?
Correct. I have about 1,400 more to go for the record
Mhm.
exam.
Mhm.
Yes.
And you had to hire an attorney for the challenge too.
Yes. Yes, I hired an attorney. I hired, someone who is the subject matter expert at looking at signatures. So again, it's to make you spend money, to drain your resources so you cannot get your message out.
Mhm. So meanwhile, while this challenge is going on, are you sitting there at the records exam, or is the attorney able to help you with it?
I'm doing both.
Mhm.
I was at the record exam, but no, the attorney is not sitting there. I'm out. I was out putting
Beverly, I think I don't know if you got disconnected, but you said that you were out there putting something, and
hello?
then yes, now we have you back. Yeah, you said that you were there putting something, and then we got
Hello?
disconnected. Hello, Beverly, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me? Hear
I
us?
can hear you now. Uh-huh.
Okay, yes. Yeah, the last thing that we heard was that you were putting something, you were during the records exam, putting something.
I'm multitasking.
uh,
Still giving out flyers, still knocking on,
You're
still trying to
getting,
get my message.
yes,
Record.
you are kind of maybe buffering because you're going in and out right now.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's
What about
okay.
now?
Much better, much better.
Okay.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, what I'm saying is that you run a campaign on your own. I mean, it's really hard to run campaigns, especially when people are fearful of the retaliation of the incumbents. And I mean, it is difficult to get good, solid people to work with you. And I understand that. So I just run my campaign on what I know to do and do the best I can to get my message out there. Because again, a lot of unions, they typically don't go against. So, we fill out the questionnaire, we go for the interviews, but at the end of the day, the unions typically goes with the incumbent. So,
Mhm.
so I just, I go along with it, and but I still just do what I can within within the power, or within my means. I do what I can do within my means.
Well, the unions they see the situation, correct? Because their employees, their members are not getting their lives are not improving under the incumbent. If what you see is is what it is, then but they will still go with the union.
That is my perception.
Mhm.
That is my perception.
Mhm.
I think everybody across the country sees what's going on here in Chicago.
Mhm.
And but yet the unions, unfortunately, they typically go with the incumbent.
Mhm. Well, earlier we were talking about records exams, and our listeners probably don't understand, some of them, many of them don't understand what a records exam is. So could you just give us a little description about that and what happens at a records exam?
Well, a record exam is generated typically by a person. Okay, well, first of all, in order to get on the ballot, you have to get as for alderman, you have to have at least 473 registered voters within your ward to sign your petition sheet saying that, yes, I want to give Beverly Miles an opportunity to run for office. Once we turn those signatures in, along with some additional documents, we turn the packet into the Board of Election. Anybody that wants to challenge you, which the incumbent in challenge, every challenger, it was myself and two other gentlemen who turned in a petition packet to run for alderman. And basically the incumbent goes through your package and typically say, no, this person can't run because this person don't have enough signatures to get on the ballot. And that's what my incumbent did. Me and the two other judges. So right now, basically I turned in 1,600 and I think 1,695 signatures.
Mhm.
The alderman is saying I only have 281 good signatures, which I know is far from the truth.
Mhm.
But again, this is a legal process that's in place that I truly believe that needs to be abolished because I think it wastes taxpayers' money. And again, it prohibits new hopefuls who want to run for office. It stifles them from getting out there campaigning while the incumbent is out there campaigning. And so once you go through the record exam, it's somebody from the Board of Election, it's somebody from the incumbent team, and they're going through every single signature within your file. So this process can take up to a week, sometime 2 weeks. So again, it ties the person that's looking to run, it ties them completely up from being a part of candidates forum, actually campaigning, getting out there, meeting and greeting voters.
Mhm.
So in my view, this is the Democratic Party way of a voter suppressing.
Mhm. But you were still able to get 8% of the 10% of the gubernatorial vote, despite all that. And you had
Correct.
several challengers. Well, if you had several challengers, do you all sit together, or are they the several challenges are together and you're there, right? When you had that you said you have 5 challenges, right? Or
No, Governor J.B. Pritzker challenged me 5 separate. I had to do the record exam. I was accused of having pattern of fraud. I was accused of, I think, round tabling. I was accused of not getting my own signatures. So each legal process that he was able to utilize, his lawyers took me to court. I went through the court system at least 5 different times.
Mhm.
So I didn't have several challengers. I had one challenger, but
Mhm.
that one challenger challenged me in the legal system 5 different times.
Got it. 5 different ways, right? In 5
Correct.
different. Mhm. Oh, and round tabling is what?
Round tabling is me sitting at a table and writing people name in and writing people's signature. One person writing people name in and signing on the behalf of other people.
Mhm. Okay, got it.
In which each challenge I beat it because most of my signatures, I would say at least 80% of my signatures I got on my own.
Mhm. Right. And the judge, the Board of Election person did they have to bring in a signature expert, or a handwriting expert, or was that the judge sufficient on his or her own to rule on those signatures, the roundtabling kind?
Well, I can't remember everything, but I do
That's okay.
remember an expert did come in from California, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
And but the judge, I don't know the intimate details of it because my lawyer handled most of it for me.
Mhm.
But each challenge I went through, I beat it. The
Mhm.
judge at the Board of Election, they saw fit that that I did roundtable. I followed the rules. I did everything right.
Mhm. Right. When you are campaigning now, how much time are you able to campaign now? Are you able to campaign at all during this during the records exam?
Yeah, I can. I can campaign, but again, the biggest issue is raising money,
Mhm.
because when people know that you're going through a record exam, people are fearful of donating money because in their mind they're thinking this person is not going to make the ballot. And typically what incumbents typically do, they will drag it out until the ballot is printed. So I don't know if the sitting incumbent is going to drag this out, but that's what they typically do. That
Mhm.
is to keep you tied up so that people will shy away from donating you money, because it takes money to run a campaign.
Mhm.
And the average person, I mean, I'm a part of the working poor, and the average person don't have a lot of money sitting in their bank account to sponsor a campaign. And this is how the incumbents stay in office,
Mhm.
election year after election year after election year. Because when people once you spend up all of your personal money and you can't campaign, and people are afraid to donate to your campaign because they think you're not going to make it, then again, the incumbent stays in office election year after election year after election year.
Mhm. You also mentioned you, there was an article written about you from Mr. I think Kanko. I forgot what his first name was, and then mentioned that you were challenged about the Hatch Act too, and your job at was it at Heinz VA?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what's the Hatch Act? How did they want? Uh, how did they want to discredit you about your being employed at the Heinz VA hospital, and you're also running for a public office?
Well, I can't really get into the intimacy of the case because I am still in federal court.
Oh,
I'm still in federal court, yes.
and
And
this
I'm
is for the
waiting.
gubernatorial
Yes,
campaign, and it's still not over. They're still dragging you in the courts.
correct. So
Oh.
the charge is still there. I was charged, I think in October of 2021 for being in violation of the Hatch Act. And the Hatch Act was put in place in 1939. And basically what it says, to sum it up in a nutshell, that if you are a government, a federal or state employee, you cannot run in a partisan's election.
Mhm.
And which my local policy said one thing, and I learned that the national policy said something totally different. So I'm still in court. It is still my good faith belief that Governor J.B. Pritzker is behind these charges being brought against me. And I'm just waiting to see what the outcome of that is going to be. It's either going to be, the punishment could be a written write-up. It can be $1,000 fine, or it could be suspension for 5 years, or it could be termination, from federal service. But the prosecutor is pushing for termination, or if they can't have termination, they're pushing for me to be suspended 3 to 5 years.
And from your job at Heinz, you still have that job then?
I do.
Mhm. Well, so does that mean that there aren't any public or federal? So the issue right now that they're trying to determine is what takes precedence over on the case, either national, which allows it, or local, which does not allow
Well,
employees to run.
well, there's a big discrepancy. There was a big discrepancy between the local and the national. But right now they're trying to determine what my punishment would be. But I made a decision based on information that I relied on, which was the local policy. And the local policy is totally in conflict of the national policy.
So evidently, what even though you have the experience of being a nurse, that went against you. They used that against you in your run for governor.
Oh, definitely. And the fact that, I mean, we're still short of nurses. I mean, we still have a big shortage on nurses, but yet the fact that I ran for governor, the issue is still being pushed about me running for governor.
So from your experience as a soldier, did that help you withstand all these challenges against your political campaigns?
I'm sorry, say that question again.
Because you were in the military, did that help you be so resilient in your political campaigns? Were you like this before joining the military, or did the military help you become the person that you are?
I think the military enhanced what my mother had already taught me. The military definitely taught me leadership like never before. It taught me resiliency. It taught me that at the end of the day, God created us all in His image. And as an Army soldier, you know, we fought to defend democracy. We didn't fight to defend a party. You know, we didn't fight to defend Republican or Democrat. You know, for the republic for which it's saying one nation under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. And that's what that means. And that's what I swore by. So I didn't swear to defend a party. I swore to defend people. And that's who I am. And I've been fighting for justice. Even as a veteran, as an active duty soldier, I was willing to die for this country, and I knew what came with it, and I was okay with that. And that is just still a part of my DNA, and I'm fighting for my community. And I've faced a lot of difficult challenges with people in the community, especially men who fought me, wanted to fight me, spoke poorly against me, but I just stayed true to what I know, and that's being a fighter. And yeah, the military helped enhance what my mother taught me.
And as to the problems in your community, what are your plans? So how can you change the mental health issues, the lack of mental health care, if you become alderperson?
I don't have all of the answers, but what I do know that it's going to take a collaborative effort. It's going to take everybody from all. I'm going to have to bring a team of people in here, and we're going to have to do an audit from zero ground up, what we have and what we don't have. And we got to figure out what is our priorities. And the priority is to get rid of the violence. But the only way we can get rid of the violence, we got to put resources. We got to put not economic development, but we need opportunities, because the development is here, but the people in the communities don't have the opportunities. And then we gotta work on the education piece. And I believe once we can bring all of that together and we can start striving for it, then we can start really seeing the dial move in terms of the violence. But can I do it by myself? Absolutely not. But it's going to take a team, and I'm willing to sit down with anybody. I don't care, black, white, green, blue, Democrat, Republican. We just got to move those barriers out, and we got to get to the root cause of everything. And it's going to take a village. It's going to take everybody.
So are you planning to bring more resources in? How are you going to ask, let's say, the Chicago Department of Public Health to do something that they're not doing right now?
Well, first of all, we got to stop being afraid. And I think a lot of our incumbents are afraid. And the reason I say they're afraid of going against the status quo. They're afraid of going against I don't know, the powers that be. We got to stop being afraid. And when I look at our incumbents, a lot of them, they have built their careers, they have built their pensions off of public service. That's not the way it should be. With me, I have a career. I have two careers. I'm retired from the military and I've been a nurse for 30 some odd years. If I retire tomorrow, I am financially set for the rest of my life. A lot of our incumbents are not. They need 4 more years to get a retirement because they've built their careers off of public service positions. So I'm not afraid to, when I get in office, to say, I need to have this in my neighborhood and stand on it. I don't have to negotiate. I don't have to sell my soul to the person with the power. I can demand what I need in my neighborhood, and what we need in our neighborhood still stands. We need true 24 hours mental health services with a inpatient substance abuse component. We need that in this neighborhood, and we don't have it.
So in other words, you're saying that if, let's say the incumbent changes things, the status quo, then that would affect his re-election chances, and that would affect his pension.
Absolutely. Because if they...
Go ahead. So
absolutely. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So what is the status quo?
Go along to get along. Go along to get along. It's not, I don't really think it's the incumbent itself. I think it's the Democratic Party. It's the Democratic Party.
And the Democratic Party is trying to maintain the status quo, which includes the crime, the lack of mental health care, and the lack of food in the ward. So it's that's what the status quo is currently. But
the status quo is beyond that. It's keeping the prison system with occupants in it. It's keeping the legal system growing. Because if we don't have resources in our community, with the mental health, with the violence, people are it's the pipeline to the prison system. So it's bigger. And it's like everybody is making money off of the pain and suffering of marginalized people.
In addition to, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Well, in addition to the prison the prison pipeline system, what else is there that benefits that people, that some people could make money off of, and they want to maintain the status quo?
I think these anti-violence organizations in marginalized community, they are funded locally, on the state level, and on the federal level. They get millions to billions of dollars. Do you really believe that they're trying to combat violence? Because if they get rid of violence, guess what? They take their jobs away. I don't believe they're trying to take their jobs away. A lot of the people that owns these anti-violence organizations, they don't live in our community. They don't live in Chicago. They don't live in the state of Illinois, but they have their fingers on the pulse of the money. And they have these anti-violence organizations, but they're not trying to take money out of their pockets. So are they truly trying to combat violence? Absolutely not. How do we have so many anti-violence organizations and programs in our communities, but the violence is still high? That doesn't make sense to me. So everybody is making money. Everybody is benefiting, except those that really need it, and it's the people in the community.
Mhm. How do you think, of course, this might involve speculation on your part. How the wards such as the 28th ward able to break free from the status quo, or have they not, or are they still in the status quo in another sense?
The only way we're going to break free from the status quo is that we need to elect a new alderman, period. We gotta elect a new congressperson, period. We have to. We have to get new leadership. We have to get people that have, I would say, a career. You got to have something outside of the alderman seat being your full-time job. I mean, it is a full-time job, but I don't think a person we don't need people in office who don't have a job or who don't have a career prior to getting in office. We need new elected officials.
Mhm. So in other words, you're saying that a lot of the incumbents, they don't have any other job. They didn't have solid careers before they became alder people. Is that
Correct.
what you meant?
That is what I'm saying. They may have degrees or may have went to school, but most of their adult career has been surrounding politics. Like with me, I've been a nurse for almost 30 years. That's the only profession I know. I served my country. I retired. I know that profession. I just happened to stumble into politics after discovering a need to advocate for my community.
Mhm.
I don't
And,
need a pension. I have a pension. So most of our politicians, they need this. Once they get in it, they're striving to retire.
so in other words, they're trying to hang on to their job just for the pension and not for the community, is what you're saying.
That is what I'm saying.
But because if they disrupt the status quo, they won't have that job anymore, and they're beholden to the status quo.
Correct. They are beholden to the status quo because they don't want the status quo to finance another candidate to run against them. So I'm going to decide with the status quo. I'm going to go along with the status quo because I don't want to lose what I had. And that's why I believe that these political offices should have term limits. Nobody should sit in an office more than 2 terms. Danny is almost 40 years. Chinatown is thriving. Downtown is thriving. Oak Park is thriving. Forest Park is thriving. Westchester is thriving. But the West Side, toward the 28th Ward and the 24th Ward is not thriving at all. Something is wrong.
And let's say the 28th Ward, do those what is the status quo in the not the 28th Ward? There was a word that you said that was doing better. Was it the 24th Ward?
27.
And are they able to? Would you say that they are able to break from the status quo in that ward in order to thrive?
Well, the 27th Ward, the population has changed. There's been a lot of gentrification in the 27th Ward. So I don't know if it's about breaking free with them. I think it's just a matter of time when the leadership is going to be changed out because we're dealing with a progressive population of people. It's more Caucasians, professionals, in that free thinkers in that ward. So it's a matter of time when that ward is going to completely change.
So in other words, right now it is thriving more because it is changing. It is changing already, and somehow the incumbent was able to affect that change, or it's just, oh no, you said that it was the population that is changing, the different demographics, but what caused the population to change? Just on account of the aging?
I don't know what caused the population to change, because I don't really do a lot of deep diving into the 27th ward. But from me growing up, it was predominantly African American, and now it's predominantly Caucasian. So there has been a lot of economic development, a lot of gentrification in the 27th ward. But in terms of the diversity, there's more Caucasian than it is African Americans in the 27th ward.
Got it. So that's for instance, you mentioned earlier the Cabrini Green neighborhood. Before it was African American, and then when it became gentrified, it became Caucasian. So if it remains if there's no, what you're saying is if there's no development that for African Americans, there won't be any improvement, because the improvement only comes when there's the development that attracts more Caucasians. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Say that again.
Is what you're saying that you're trying to bring economic development for the African American community in the 28th ward, because in those other wards, when they became more thriving, it was only on account of the white Caucasians coming into the neighborhood, not the African Americans having a better life.
I'm trying to understand the question that what you're saying. I mean, even with the Cabrini Greens, when they shut down the Cabrini Green projects, they moved all of those African American people out of the neighborhood. And they moved them they put them in different communities all over the city of Chicago. They began to build up the Cabrini Green area, and again, that's when the gentrification started. So Black people wasn't able to afford to live or purchase in that area. I mean, they still have like a little Cabrini Green, what do you call them, CHA housing. They still have that over there. But it was gentrified all around the Cabrini Green area. So, and again, African American people was not able to afford to purchase those $200,000, $300,000 condos. So it was the Caucasian population who purchased them. But we don't, in the 28th ward, we do not have that type of development going on. We don't have those opportunities here. We have absolutely nothing here.
And how will you work to bring in those opportunities, that kind of development?
Again, it would have to be crucial conversations with the developers and with the communities, and we would have to have an understanding that we want development, we want economic opportunities without gentrification. People should not have to be displaced out of their communities in order for their communities to be built. I think it has to be a collaborative effort, to where everybody wins.
Meanwhile, this is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us on WZRD, Beverly Miles, who is a candidate for Alderperson of the 28th ward. How are you going to address crime, reduce the crime, just with this development that you spoke about? Okay, that's and then for education, how can you improve the schools? Because is it CPS controls most of the schools, like say in your ward and in the 27th ward or the 24th ward that is thriving. How could you influence CPS to do a better job in the 28th ward?
We got to start having crucial conversations. We have to stop allowing people to make decisions on the behalf of marginalized children. We got to have everybody at the table. We have to have the community at the table. And the bottom line is, I mean, I think CPS need to have a full overhaul, because there is no way, if the CPS system is one system, but you have the north side of Chicago, their schools are thriving, their children are educationally competitive. But then when you come to the west side of Chicago, our children are not educationally competitive. A lot of Black children, when they come to school, they're already coming to school at preschool, dealing with traumas.
Yes.
And nobody is dealing with that trauma from how to say it. Nobody is dealing with the trauma when marginalized children are coming to school. So if we got a preschooler coming to school dealing with mom going to jail or dad going to jail, or some abuse in the home, or the child being abused, or the child not eating, and when they come to school, their attention span is not on learning, their attention span is on surviving.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that we need to have more trauma-focused programs in our preschools, in high trauma areas. I don't think people are talking about that. I don't think that service is available. Instead of making situations a DCFS or a parenting issue, let's make this a society issue. So even with CPS, I think we got to start having hard conversations. We got to start having true conversation, and we got to stop skirting around the issues at hand.
Mm-hmm. What about the nonprofit organizations? Are they able to help concerning, let's say, the needs of the preschoolers, that cannot function in their educational environment?
I think nonprofit, I think they have a place, but again, these nonprofits and these anti-violence organizations, if they truly fix the problem, I think it'll take them out of business.
And they are able to fix the problems, but they just won't yet. Is what you're saying? Because if they really wanted to, they should be able to do it.
I think if I'm a nonprofit organization, if we really fix the root cause issue, then it's going to take my nonprofit organization that I've built my income on out of business. That's just the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
The anti-violence organization, if we stop all of the violence, guess what? We don't get to send our children to college. We don't get to fund our lifestyles. So it just makes me question I'm not saying this is about everybody, but we got to start looking at that.
Mm-hmm. How would you address the crime? Also through these conversations, what are there any other ways that you could address the crime in your neighborhood, the 28th ward?
It's tough. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough.
Do you feel that if you were to ask the police to do more, they could, or are they limited in their resources?
They're limited, definitely. I think if they could do more, they would do more. But I think they're limited not only in resources. I think they're limited in what they can do in terms of what is perceived as being use of force. Even with the police department, it's a very big challenge. When you have in my community, most of the police officers, they're young Caucasians. So if I'm a young Caucasian who's never lived around Black people or don't understand Black people, it could be intimidating. it can be fearful, you know, and I just think the police department need to do a better job with including cultural diversity, an intense cultural diversity training within their curriculum, because a lot of these police officers, you know, they've never been in our community. They don't really understand culture. So, but yeah, I think they don't have the resources they need to effectively do their job.
Mm. And as Alderperson, you would try to bring more resources for them so that they could better do their job. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I will definitely advocate. I'm not anti police department. I am pro police department because there is a permanent fixture for them. But definitely I would advocate for more resources, but I would advocate for accountability. But at the same time, they need to really, to work in a community, you really need to understand the population that you serve. And you have to understand, how did the community get here? How did the community get to this point? So yeah, the police department, they need a lot of support.
And what about the training for the police officers? Did you mention before that there needs to be a periodic retraining? Was that what you mentioned before?
I think they need to have some. I think they need to have mandatory cultural diversity, cultural sensitivity training at least twice a year, and I think it should be mandated, because if you serve a population, you need to understand the population you're serving. I mean, that's just like me as a nurse. You know, when I go in to treat a patient, you know, I need to know something about their culture. You know, how do they communicate? You know, if from a, you know, Asian, from what I know about Asian culture, a lot of times they don't give eye contact. What does that mean? In some cultures, it might be indicative of disrespect, but then in other cultures, it could be a sign of respect. You know, so you got to really understand the population in which you serve.
When you were in the military and when you trained to be a nurse, did you receive any of this cultural diversity training?
Absolutely. That's why I know about it. In the and in nursing school, we had a course. It was a full course. I can't remember if it was a semester long. It was on cultural diversity nursing, and we learned about every culture there is: the Asian, African American, Egyptian. We learned about the basic humanistic needs, or the basic communication, the basic how they, you know, some cultural, you talk to the husband opposed to talking to if the patient is a female, you talk to the husband because it's the husband who's the head of the household. So yeah, and we had to pass that.
Is there a homeless problem in the 28th ward?
Oh yes.
And
Yeah.
and what will you be doing differently from the incumbent regarding the homeless population?
Well, one, I do understand you do have some people that, how to say it, and I want to be sensitive about it. Some people like living in those conditions. But we have a lot of homeless property, is what I call it. We have a lot of vacant properties, and I would like to be able to find money. I don't know how. I don't, everything I do, I want to make sure it's within it's legal. To make sure it's legal to get monies to fix up some of these large vacant properties and turn it into a state-of-the-art homeless facility. to where they can be able to sleep, take showers, have doctors or social workers on site to where they can get all of the services they need to be whole and healthy within their own means.
Mhm. And to help them find jobs too, if they want to
Yeah.
find a job. Mhm.
Yes, I mean, there's a building probably maybe 5 minutes from where I live. It used to be called the Guyan Hotel. And I think it has to be over maybe 100 apartments in this building. And it's been sitting vacant in my community for a very long time. I don't know who owns it, but I look at that property all the time and I'm like, okay, the first floor could be like a common area where they could do job trainings, apply for job, a computer lab. The second floor, you can open it up, for a doctor's office, have social workers on duties, nurses on duties, and then your upper floors could be the housing area. And I think that would take a lot of people off the streets of the city of Chicago. But at the same time, connect them with job resources, connect them with trade schools or training and substance abuse programs.
Mhm. And over the years, there haven't been any programs for this, right? Were there any nonprofit organizations that are addressing homelessness and then are helping to try to get people jobs in the 28th ward?
There are programs, but again, with the programs, in my view, I don't know how effective it is because again, we still have people sleeping on the streets. We still have people sleeping in abandoned buildings. We still have people sleeping in West Garfield Park.
Mhm.
So I don't know how effective these programs are.
Mhm.
And
I think you dropped out again, Beverly. Beverly, I don't know if you stepped away from the mic a little bit too much or you buffered out of the conversation. But
can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Now we can. Now we cannot. Yes, well, we cannot hear you now, Beverly. Cannot.
About now?
Yes, we can. Now we can.
Okay. As Alderman, I would like to know how many nonprofit homeless programs we have here in the 28th Ward. I would like to know what type of services they're rendering. Is it just housing or is it housing with transition to work? Or I would like to know what programs they have on site. Huh?
No, go ahead. You finish.
Yeah, what programs are they connecting these individuals to so they can go out and be able to sustain themselves eventually?
Mhm. Would you do an audit on these nonprofit organizations to make sure that they are working toward helping the people in your community?
Absolutely. I will audit everything that's going on in the 28th Ward. I would audit that office because I would like to know what deals have been made. Because as a person that's looking to run for office, it would be hard for me to say what I'm going to do opposed to what I would like to do, because I don't know the corruption that's been done in that seat. And what I don't want to come across as being a liar. I want to audit everything. I want to audit the nonprofit programs. I want to audit the anti-violence program. I want to see the data. What have you achieved? What are you doing? What programs are you offering? Who have you hired? Are they professional? Are they licensed trained? Do they have a trauma focus?
Mm-hmm.
And based on my audit, then I, as the alderman, then I can start saying, hey, this works and this doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
How about bringing this? Because what I think is that our spending is wasteful. and the right people are not getting paid, because a lot of these nonprofits and these anti-violence organizations, they're getting the money is there, but it's going to overhead costs, paying for staff, paying for supplies, paying for resources. And when it get down to the people that need it, nothing is there.
No results, but a lot of money spent without any visible results is what you're saying.
Correct. There is no visible results. None.
And for the homeless people, do you have homeless people in the parks? How many parks do you have? Are there homeless people in your parks?
In the West Garfield Park is the biggest part. I don't know how many is there right now, but I do, about a week ago, there was one tent there, but during the summer months, there's a lot of tents in the West Garfield Park. Right behind my house, it's a vacant old Firestone building. During the summer, I think it was maybe like 5 tents out there. About a couple of weeks ago, before it snowed, it was one big tent back there. So yeah, there's always a lot of homeless people here in my neighborhood.
Do you know how those other ones that were in tents, they are no longer there? Did you do any research to find out how they were able to remove whether those people have gone to a shelter or have found some temporary housing?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, because they're there 1 minute and they're gone the next. So you just really never know if they left on their own or if they was forced to leave, if they moved to another location. That I don't know, because a lot of times, again, they can be there 1 minute and gone the next.
What do when you talk with the constituents, what do they tell you the most?
The violence. It's the violence. Yeah, it's the violence. It's the biggest thing, because next to Washington, Warren, and we had a gas station in our neighborhood, and there was always shooting, gun violence going on over there. And bullets would fly in the windows of, the seniors. I mean, I had a bullet to fly in my window. So it's always something. So definitely it's the violence.
And let's see. And when you how do you meet the voters the most? Do you create events or do you knock on doors? How do you get your message out to your constituents?
Knock on doors. And it's kind of dangerous right now with knocking on doors. It's not the way it was pre-COVID, because it seemed like COVID just kind of like everything. But I do knock on doors if I'm out at the stores. I walk the streets, and I communicate to people that way. I've not had any events as of yet. But then I work and dealing with legal fees from the governor's race. I'm financially trying to recover from that. And now I'm running for office again. So I'm paying my legal fees with that. So I do plan on having an event in January. I don't have a date in mind as yet, but I am planning on having a fundraiser in January and February. And but again, I'm just, anytime I meet somebody, I'm always talking, I'm sharing my story and letting people know what I'm doing. And we just, I mean, the automatic seat does not belong to the individual, it belongs to the resident. And I'm just encouraging the residents to get involved, but a lot of them have lost a lot of hope. And I'm just trying to, keep people encouraged and inspired, and and just be a part of the change and be a part of this journey with me.
What are your, when you talk with your constituents, what is their opinion about the incumbent?
Well, I mean, I don't want to talk, well, I mean, they know that we don't have any resources.
Mhm.
And they're like, hey, the same thing is going on, but it's worse. We don't see no change. We don't see them until election time, and we don't have a grocery store. But
Mhm.
again, a lot of people are afraid to speak up and speak out or be seen.
Mhm.
So a lot of people just, tuck their head down and just keep moving.
Mhm. And you're referring to just the residents. You're not talking about the small businesses or anything. You're talking about just the.
All of them.
Mhm.
All of them. The business owners are fearful.
Mhm.
Um, they're afraid to support somebody because their biggest conversation is, what if you don't win? If you don't win, then my business is going to be targeted.
Mhm.
Or they'll say things, well, I don't want my business to be shut down because I'm seen communicating with you.
Mhm.
No, you can't put a sign in my window because if the incumbent sees that, they may close my doors. So
Mhm.
that has been a lot of the conversations with me with business owners.
Mhm. What about
So
the residents? Are they okay with putting your sign in the window?
some of them are, but their parents are not.
Mhm.
And because the parents have had relationships with other um, political people, like Danny Davis
Mhm.
and or Ed Smith, who used to be in office prior to Jason Irvin. They've how to say it, I want to be politically correct. They have the back to school parades and
Mhm.
the programs, and they said nice things to me, but yet our community still look the way it look, and I don't want to piss them off. So so for me, I don't bother people with it because again, people don't want to be subjected to retaliation.
Mhm. Uh, So yeah, so in other words, you're trying to get your message out, but it's hard to find a team and supporters because people are afraid of retaliation. Is
Correct.
mm. Well,
Correct.
Beverly, if people wanted to help your campaign and want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Well, right now I'm in the process of rebuilding a new web page for my automatic campaign. Right now, my governor's website is still up.
Mhm.
My personal phone number is area code 773-870-9855. I don't have a second number because I want voters to call me. I want them to see that I am a real person that they can communicate with, they can talk to. So yeah, so that's how they can reach me. But right now, my social media, everything is being revised. And
Mhm.
once I get it revised, I should have everything done by the second week of January. And then I'll be switching everything over. But for right now, if anyone want to reach out to me, they can reach out to me via my personal cell phone. And it's area code 773-870-9855.
Well, Beverly Miles, Alderperson candidate for the 28th Ward. Thank you so much for joining us on WZRD this morning, and happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you.
Thank you.
Take care now.
You too.